stations on the central musical rhythm. We're cut off. I'm still keeping several channels open for incoming calls, however. Maybe someone will listen in and be able to tell we're in trouble.
That leaves us with only one choice. But somehow we're going to have to make contact with this thing. Tell it what it's doing. Make it understand. Do you think it's capable of communicating?
If so, Captain. Several attempts are made. If it does comprehend, it is choosing to ignore our voices, codes, and screen signs that displayed throughout the ship. Can't we fight back somehow, Spock? Fight your sound. No. We could overpower it with more sound. That might drive us insane or deaf. It might also anger. It might find the blast of artificial sound challenging by the power of its own mind. I can't imagine what its religious response is.
Everyone okay? That one hurt.
Half the transparent facings on my instruments are gone.
Damage reports coming in from all over the ship.
The danger is no longer theoretical, Captain. The creature appears able to reproduce any frequency it desires. Presumably, potentially capable of successfully destroying any substance.
Got to make contact somehow. There's got to be a way. Missouri? Connors. Where's Lieutenant Connors?
He left a few minutes ago, Captain, during that burst.
Yeah, 420. Shout out to Scrapes. Walter Gross, what's up? Big up Kuma. Mission G.
dead or alive. I wish that I could send you my love with letters in the sky to let you know that I'm alright. You always on my mind, even though I'm out of sight. Real love never dies. Every day I exercise my memory and put you next to me. We can't fight destiny. Play your hand, whatever it be. Committing felonies, trying to feed the family. Everybody hating me. It's love, actually.
Honey, we was walking down the Champs-Élysées, sipping on vino, you was all in your Burberry's Vuitton Couture. I want my future with you now, I want you on my futon. I mean, wait till they do you self, you know I'm so my gosh, she don't be no, I be on trying like the Jaco. Let's make up, breakfast in bed, you wake up, no makeup necessary, keep it raw, rough and rugged, make you quake up, yeah.
Speaking honestly, I do what I gotta do just to be who I gotta be. Make a mockery, deep in the debauchery. But I'm rich, cause I got the penny every time you thought of me. Fuck a bitch, that's how they taught a G. But you got me talking awkwardly and walking next to you. Sometimes it's hard for me. But you my guardian angel, you always follow me. And I'll die for you, death before dishonor, G.
Naysayers, I pray for paradox. Anti, commit time to one rise, no flaws, rebel applause and high five, it's no job, it's all good vibes. Riding on the baseline, define when I break bonds. You can't hold me, hoax, I'm too holy smokes, let go of me. I'm one of the only hopes that bonafide lonely ghost coat was phony. They really like me, should've won a Tony. Could've would've, but that ball trick skipped across the field, hit the goalie. Best loss I ever suffered. Non-fickle and flustered. Psychology. Psych myself out of many mental disorders. Novus ordo seclorum. They can't avoid us. Voices swell. Poor boys, not a void of hell. Clairvoyance, delusion. More so than sales. Focus, screw intrusion. All that bogus breath.
Taste the love, prime minister, tender wet, sinister misses. Develop the plot to bust tops at these visitors. Chemistry said underneath the jail premises. She lit a pest to get excited about flexing ass, missing the point. Speeding down, holding pitchforks. Unlock the fort by force, call force, a leg bar. Energies of the lost, peacekeeper charm. Beast ether calm, then flex to ether bone. Tinker free a song. Beacon measure pure MTC. Device we on or off. Spit through contact, enter the body at 100 degrees. Crack Celsius, flooded the streets. Remain humble as we unearth trees.
Fake jungles, black jungle, squeeze through the ozone.
Yeah, welcome to The Machine Lies, where we talk about the lies of the machine on the machine that lies. And yeah, we got some interesting reflections for you guys. Now, last week, I was not really able to get into the type of speculations that I wanted to, right? But there's no really time limitations here, right? So if we get a chance to engage in some good discussions, right, we'll go ahead and take it because you know, as you see right now, the link is in the chat and nobody is joining, right? So we get many times where nobody would like to join the conversation. So if somebody does choose to join, it's fine if we go off script a little bit, right, and then engage in the discussion, right? So that's good, right? So we got a little discussion in there, right? Now, of course, all of the discussions reflect on the key, principles and problems and possible solutions, right? Which is the ideas of, the historical ideas, right, that we're sort of laying out, right? They all seem to point in one direction, right? They seem to point to a world, right, that's inundated, right, with not only technical necessity, right, but also a drive or push towards new forms of technological innovation, right? So you have a world civilization, right? And if I could carefully outline, what we've been sort of exploring, right? Here is something I wrote on the Twitter profile earlier. And of course, nobody really read it. It's 21 impressions, 2 likes, right? So not that much engagement. There's also an ad right on the post there. Here, give me a second here. Let me share the screen. Hold on, I got to sort of zoom in on this, right? Let me share the screen and share this quote of mine, right? Do a little cross promotion here. We are terribly low on numbers and supporters, so it is what it is, right? Even the people that engage with my material, right, engage with private discussions with me, won't watch the show. And they all fight each other, right? So there's terrible crash out, in the Discord for sure. Where everybody hates each other, right? So yeah, hopefully this will be a place where lots of intelligent people can have disagreements with each other, right? And we can foster a place for those intelligent disagreements, right? So yeah, so here's a little quote here. Let me zoom in more. And this is barely. Okay, I think that's good enough, right? So yeah, the world technological system separates man from nature and deep sense of the sacred, right? It collectivizes man and imposes change on the herd animal man as quote unquote species being. Right? The result is a religion that is anti-life and a science that is anti-man, right? Okay, we see this all over, right? Okay, we see a profound sense in which the science, right, that's pushed by technological innovation, right? It strives to fulfill the pseudo-eschatology of progress, right? So it's driven forward by progress. It imposes its change on man, right? So it's not driven by human needs, right? It's driven by technical necessity, technical efficiency, right? Okay, now the second idea is that religion, right, that is anti-life, and you see in the transhumanists, right, they follow a form of scientific misanthropy, right, in which they believe that humanity can be superseded, right? So how did this idea come about? Well, first you have to universalize man, right? Right. Then you have to subject man, right, to the changes that happen in history, right? In order to understand progress, you have to understand this notion of world history, right? Right, as they say, the Jewish God is a God of history, right? And the Bible is presented to us as a history, right? And so is the Ramayana, right? And certain Hindu texts, right? They're presented as histories, right? So this notion of history, right? Okay, and this notion of future, right? And of course, they both relate to this overarching notion of the structure of time itself, right? Right? Is time sort of linear? Now, me and Buddha were talking about this, right? That sort of eschatological schemes. Okay, it's our perception of time. Now, ultimately, it's a perception of nature versus time, right? Or at least that's what the utopian impulse was really about, right? It was about man sort of transcending nature, right? By the use of his reason, right? Now, Nick Land and Dugan had a debate yesterday, right? And I think Dugan failed to define liberalism, right? He defined it as individualism, right? But the problem is the paradox of the liberal philosophy, sort of how it individualizes, atomizes, and yet collectivizes or massifies, right? So it's this dual push, right? Because universalism doesn't just mean individualism, it also means sort of equality, right? So both of these notions, right? Now, this is how sort of Hegel saw it. Now, just as Hobbes created the notion of the artificial man, right? Okay, which is the notion that the state, right, or the collectivization of man, right, within the body politic, right, that this state could become an artificial god, right? I mean, an artificial man. Sorry, not artificial god, artificial man, right? But of course, it is a sort of idol, right? But it's artificial man, right? The notion of the artificial man, the state as the artificial man, right? Which he says is a mortal god, right? He says the artificial man is a mortal god. He does make that leap, right? It's within the chapter on the Commonwealth in Hobbes, right? Where he sort of collectivizes the will of man within the representation of the state. Okay, now for Locke, right, he reified the ideas of individualism, right? Because Hobbes' notion of this collective will, right, it sublimates man's authority too much. So Hobbes wanted to bring back individualism, right? So he created the notion of private property, right? This is what the individual possesses and the state protects, right? So it's a sort of bridge between the individual rights, right, and the sort of generalized laws of the state, right? This notion of property, right? So property is sort of like this idea that justifies, right, state authority, right? Now for Marx, right, and remember, Marx is getting kicked out of the the French Commune, right, during the French Revolution, right? And his ideas are considered a little too radical, right? Okay, and you have to see that Hegel sort of supported the French Revolution, right? He said, well, we got to rise up, right? Him and the philosopher Schelling went to go plant a tree of liberty in the marketplace, right? And they saw Napoleon as the spirit of world history, right? So Marx was sort of identifying with this utopian vision, right? of both Kant and Hegel, right? Now, Kant had borrowed it from Swedenborg, right? Okay, this notion of a unification of the governments of the world, right? So Kant saw this as a political arrangement, right? He saw the practical extension of this to be a sort of political arrangement, sort of establishment of a world government, right? Okay, now Hegel sort of saw this as idealizing, right, within this sort of revolutionary instinct, right, that unfolds throughout time. And he sort of called this the spirit of world history, right? So you have this notion, right, because for Kant, right, the universal laws of morality, right, they were like in stasis, right? Right. For Hegel, these sort of were part of a historical movement that drove history, right? They were sort of the engine of history, right? So he sort of pushed forth this idea of progress, right? Right. So, you know, for Hegel, he sort of added a sort of quasi-dispensationalism, right? That was sort of then taken to Marx in the pseudo-eschatology of progress, and of course in the Masonic organization, the League of the Just, right? One of their goals is the establishment of the kingdom of God on earth, okay? And they had internationalist designs, right? So let's get into some of the ideas of Marx here, right? And of course we got two guys, right? Okay, we got Hegel and Marx. So I got two different presentations, and we barely got into it last time. Right? One is Paul Stuthern on Marx. Paul Stuthern on Marx, right? Where he wrote this Hegel in 90 minutes, right? And yeah, it is a scathing sort of historical, you know, understanding of Hegel's thoughts. And of course, Hegel is a huge supporter of Kant. He's a huge supporter of Spinoza, and these guys in turn, right? Right, Kant and Spinoza, right? They were very fond of the British political project, right? Like I said, they were fond of the French Revolution, or they were fond of French politics, right? Okay, you know, Kant supported the ideas of Locke, right? So there's a sort of genealogy there, right? And there's even a genealogy there in terms of epistemology, right? Because a sort of Locke and Hobbes, they sort of established the ideas of empiricism, right? Or empirical knowledge, right? I'm sort of following Bacon, right? So there's this entire expansion there, right? So there's a genealogy, right, between, right, the British. Okay, and there's a lot of involvement with sort of British intelligence in the French Revolution, right? And then you have sort of the underpinnings, right, of this notion starting in Germany, okay, with Hegel. Okay, and of course, there we have the foundations, okay, in terms of Marx and Hegel, right, two parts of what will become the Frankfurt School. And from there, we could move to looking at the ideas, okay, within Marcuse's one-dimensional man, right, sort of the sense of sort of techno-nihilism that he explores within that, right? Okay, and moving from that to the sort of actual problems with the technological scope, right? Sort of its physical manifestation, right, and its effects, right, on society, and then move from that to the extrapolation of the transhumanist ideals within the MK Ultra sort of within MK Ultra. So yeah, that's where we're at here. So let me open this up for you guys. Give me 1 second. Whoops. That is the wrong tab there. Sorry, that might give me 1 second, folks. I think we're 15 minutes into this. So yeah. So this is Paul Stethern. Hegel in 90 minutes. Okay, let's take a look. Right.
This appears to have been in the form of an insight into the divine unity of the cosmos, where all finite division was seen as illusory. Everything was interdependent, and the ultimate reality was the whole. Hegel had been reading the 17th century Jewish pantheist Spinoza during this period, and Spinoza's philosophy seems to have greatly influenced this vision. Spinoza's system was in many ways as daunting as Kant's. It was constructed in the style of Euclidean geometry. Starting out from a few basic axioms and definitions, it proceeded by a series of theorems to build up an infinite system of extreme purity and rationalism. This...
Oh yeah, I forgot to read, I was talking about how, Hobbes had this idea of the artificial man, right, being a mortal god, right? So the state represented sort of this collectivization of the human spirit, right? Now, the notion of, the collective will pops up in Rousseau's Social Contract, right? What I was trying to say is that Locke wanted to take this notion, right, of the collective will and then exchange it for this notion of private property and individual rights. Okay, so he sort of attacked Hobbes, right, to kind of free this notion of individual rights. Okay, and then Rousseau comes back and says, well, that's bullshit, right? And look what Rousseau says, right? Okay, look what Rousseau says in his first and second discourses, right? Second discourse, second part, the first sentence, right? The first sentence, he says, the first person who, having fenced off a plot of ground, took it into his head to say, this is mine, and found people simple enough to believe him, was a true founder of civil society. What crimes, wars, murders, what miseries and horrors would the human race would have spared by someone who, uprooting the stakes or filling in the ditch, had shouted to his fellow men, beware of listening to this impostor. You are lost if you forget that the fruits belong to all, and the earth to no one. But it's very likely that by then things had already come to a point where they could no longer remain as they were. For this idea of property, depending on many prior ideas, which could only have arisen successfully, was not conceived all at once in the human mind. It was necessary to make much progress, to acquire much industry and enlightenment, to transmit augment them from age to age before arriving at the last stage, the state of nature. Okay, so look at what he's saying, right? Locke is saying, look, Adam, our patriarch, right, he founded civil society by creating the notion of private property. And Rousseau's saying the first guy who, having fenced off a piece of land and saying, this is mine, that was the imposter. It's an extremely strange situation, right? So it's a terrible disagreement, right, between Enlightenment philosophy and, the ideas of Romanticism that reject the ideas of the Enlightenment, right? Yeah, blessings, Sky Angel. I appreciate you.
The universe as geometrical system was God, and he alone was completely real. He, and thus the infinite universe of which he consisted, contained no negation and was ruled by absolute logical necessity, as in Spinoza's proofs. The negative, evil, finite, and accidental world seen by humanity was due to our nature as finite beings who are able to grasp the absolute necessity and true reality of the infinite whole. As a result of his Spinozistic vision, Hegel decided to abandon such distractions as poetry, blasphemy, and keeping a diary in the form of an encyclopedia. Instead, he would devote himself entirely to philosophy. From now on, Hegel was to spend the rest of his life articulating his mystic vision of the cosmos and giving it a rational, intellectual basis. The result would be his own all-embracing system.
Yeah, and this is part and parcel of a lot of philosophers, right? And it seemed like, to a certain degree, to be megalomaniacal, right? Because Hegel sort of idealizes that the spirit of world history and the mind realizing itself, and the spirit of world history is actually his own mind realizing, or it's like reality folds in on himself with his own realization, right? So this sort of megalomaniacal notion that Hegel himself single-handedly had discovered the ultimate truth, right, by his own summation, right? I mean, this seems to be a very, very, at least like Nietzsche and Rousseau did not do this, right? They just didn't do this, right? They didn't write books on epistemology and metaphysics, right? They were critics of culture and science and the arts and of philosophers, right? So that is one thing that I think you could say much to their credit, right? Is that Hegel and Kant and Spinoza and, these guys, they want to figure it all out, right? And they want to tell you what it is, right? And that seemed like, like they felt like they even wanted to define God, right, in their system, right? I mean, Spinoza, Descartes, and Leibniz, they define God. I mean, could you imagine the hubris, right? It's just fantastical, right? But I mean, you have to wonder with these philosopher guys. I mean, and some of the scientists. I mean, they're very egotistical.
From the outset, this system was to bear many resemblances to Spinoza's, apart, of course, from...
And I was saying to Buddha earlier that how much better is discernment than intelligence? Right? There's people who figure out like 3 principles, and they avoid 90% of the bullshit in society, right? Because they're able to hammer out those principles within their daily practice of life. And there's people who amass mountains of knowledge and information, and they're further deluding themselves every single day, further deluding themselves, further falling into more catastrophical forms of innovation and kicking the can down the road, essentially, right? When the nothing that all the fruit that they bear is poison bearing, right? It's insane. And so to think that's simplistic people that just have discernment and they abide by 2 or 3 principles and they don't know that much, that they aren't far superior than these so-called intellectuals. I mean, it's so clear. I mean, it's so clear. As I said, simplicity is creativity, and complexity breeds assimilation. Right? This is absolutely the truth. Right? And the more and more you kick the can down the road, you accumulate more false maxims, and it's just the best things in life are free and simple, and the best help is non-professional. Right? Oftentimes,
metric clarity. When it came to presentation, Hegel still favored the Kantian approach, monumental obfuscation. But it was Spinoza who had shown Hegel how to break free of Kant's overwhelming influence. Kant's was not the only possible philosophic system. In 1799, Hegel's father died, and he was left a small inheritance of $1,500, according to Durant, which means it may have been 1,500 thalers, from which the word dollar derives. Hegel now had just enough to live on, and he wrote to his friend Schelling asking if he could recommend a German city where Hegel could live cheaply, one with a simple local cuisine, a comprehensive library, and ein gutes Bier, a drinkable draught. At the time, Schelling was the precocious star professor of the University of Jena, and he immediately encouraged Hegel to join him. Unusually for philosophers, it appears that neither of them had good taste in beer. The local beer I tasted in Jena was certainly not in the Bundesliga of great German beers. I was later ominously informed that it originated from the local hospice. Hegel arrived in Jena in 1801 and became a Privatdozent at the university, a post where the pay depends upon the number of students who attend your lectures. Fortunately for Hegel, he had private means. At first, only 4 students attend his lectures. Unlike his great metaphysical predecessor Kant, whose literary style was execrable and lecturing style brilliant, Hegel preferred to be consistent. His lecturing style was as wretched as his literary style. At the end of the 18th century, the University of Jena was the most exciting in Germany. Schiller delivered occasional lectures in history. The Schlegel brothers and the poet Novalis helped establish the first German Romantic school there, and the latest post-Kantian philosophy was being expounded by the great idealist Fichte. All these poetic figures had departed by the time.
So Fichte was the great successor of Kantian philosophy. Right, where Hegel wanted to be buried next to Fichte, right? And Fichte was the guy who sort of, sparked up this notion of the phenomenology, right? And he sort of exposed how Kant's system of epistemology sort of folds in on itself and a sort of mind driving the rest of the movement there, right? So Fichte was a heavy thinker that promulgated that mind, a quality of mind within Kantian philosophy was far greater than the sense, perception, and all that type of stuff. And of course, Hegel wanted to be buried next to Fichte, as I said, right? So he thought that Fichte's achievements were monumental, sort of summation of the Kantian philosophy, right? But a lot of philosophers would disagree with that, right? So.
Hegel arrived to lecture there, but in their place the 26-year-old Schelling was inspiring students with the romantic enthusiasm of his nature philosophy. This was far too exciting for Hegel, and he soon began to fall out with Schelling. Meanwhile, despite a dramatic increase in attendance at his lectures, to 11, Hegel began to run out of money. But he refused to take the easy option. He had integrity like hedgehogs have prickles. Not for one moment was he tempted to make his lectures interesting or even comprehensible. Hegel was now beginning to formulate his great system, and he appears to have gradually worked it out as he went along, on his students. In the words of one of his later admiring students, stammering already at the beginning, he forced his way on, made a new beginning, again stopped short, spoke and meditated. The exact word seemed ever to be in request, and just then it came with infallible certainty. Now one felt one had grasped a proposition, and expected a further advance to be made. In vain. The thought, instead of advancing, kept turning with similar words again and again around the same point. Yet if the wearied attention was allowed to stray for a moment, one found on returning that one had lost the thread of discourse. And remember, this is a description by a fervent disciple. We can only imagine the effect of this technique on the hapless student who had spent a night with the hospice beer. So what could they do about Hegel? In the end, someone appealed to Goethe, who was a privy councillor at the nearby court in Weimar and had influence with the authorities. Hegel was created an extraordinary professor, merely confirming the obvious in the view of some of his colleagues, and granted a stipend of $100. This enabled Hegel to press on with his great philosophic work, the Phenomenology of Mind. But Hegel's phenomenal activities were not limited exclusively to the mind, for around this time his landlady became pregnant. This fact crops up in Hegel's biographies like the occasional rare gem of lucidity in his prose.
Yeah, I think Marx had the same problems, as we'll see. Right? But yeah, so let's open up the Marx one. I mean, we're sort of skating along here, right? So there's a little information on Hegel, and we're sort of periodically looking at this throughout the Tuesday shows, right? Of course, we got a lot of writings and material to get through, so I'll just skate on by here and move on to Marx. Thomas Sowell on Marx. Right. And I think we're like 10 minutes into this one. So give me a second here. Oh yeah, I could just press this button here. There we go.
Russian anarchist Mikhail Bakunin, and the French radical writer Pierre-Joseph Proudhon. Heine, though at first a great friend of the Marxes, was eventually alienated by Karl Marx's arrogance and dogmatism. In later years, Heine described the Paris radicals, including Marx, as a crowd of godless, self-appointed gods. Among these radicals was a young German whom Marx had met briefly before, Friedrich Engels. Collaboration with Engels. Engels, 2 years younger than Marx, came from an even wealthier family, which owned half interest in a factory in Germany and half interest in another factory in England. His father had never been as indulgent as Marx's father, and Engels never attended a university, but he was well read, and by middle age could...
Yeah, Marx's father was a very interesting character, as I said before, right? So Marx's family is related to the Rothschild family, right? And also, Marx's father was like a Freemason, right? And also feigned conversion to Protestantism, right? So he was a Protestant in public, right? A Jew in private and a Freemason in secret, right? All three, right? So there was many members of German society that were like that, right? That were influenced by all those different forms, right?
Read and write nearly 24 languages. Engels was sent away at 17 to get on-the-job training in the family business in Bremen. Here he was not overworked. He was, after all, an owner's son, and was known to have beer, cigars, poems, and correspondence with him, and to take a leisurely lunch and a nap afterwards in a hammock. He also found time to study...
Yeah, I wonder when the Germans started drinking beer, right? It's like 1800s, right? It's like Hegel's time, they're drinking beer, Marx's time, right? So yeah, it's interesting, right? Obviously, I think beer is a German invention or something like that. Is it? I could be wrong, but yeah, interesting. Yeah,
it's probably far older though.
Yeah, yeah. For those who know,
it's probably as old as the agrarian society developing. I'm sure.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
with
like
cultivating the wheat and the hops and all that.
Yeah. So beer is a very popular drink here in the States. It's like so it is what it is. So I think it must have originated in some European country.
Hegel. Engels eventually became a member of the Young Hegelians, and in 1842 had his first brief meeting with the editor of the Rheinische Zeitung, Karl Marx. Their first meeting was cool, for Marx viewed Engels at that point as just another member of the radical group whose literary contributions to the paper were causing him trouble with the censors. From 1842 to 1844, Engels lived in Manchester, England, working in the family business there and observing the conditions of the working people in this industrial town, observations which led to his first book, The Conditions of the Working Class in England, in 1844. When he passed through Paris on his way back to the Rhineland in 1844, he again met Marx, and this time many days of discussion found them in complete agreement on questions of theory, as they continued to be for the remaining decades of their lives. At this juncture, Engels was not only further advanced than Marx on the road to communism, but was also much better versed in economics. Although their first joint publication, The Holy Family, appeared a year later, There was at that point no suggestion of a continuing collaboration between them. The foreword to the Holy Family promised future writings from the pair.
Yeah, I thought the Holy Family was connected to Moses Hess somehow. I could be wrong. But yeah, I think this might be the work where they took the theory from Moses Hess.
And eventually winds up on Dan Brown's lap or something.
Yeah, I don't know. The Holy Family. But yeah, I forget where I
This is
heard.
a different Holy Family.
Yeah, I played recently something where it said that Moses Hess taught Marx and Engels the theory of communism. And of course, Moses Hess is a Talmudic rabbi, right, who wrote Rome and Jerusalem. But I think eventually they kicked him out of their movement. The same with Bakunin, right? So yeah.
Each for himself, of course. But in reality, later events brought them together again in England, in a permanent alliance in which their ideas and words were so intermingled that it would be rash to say conclusively, 100 years later, what was Marx's and what was Engels'. Even Marx's daughter, after his death, mistakenly published a collection of her father's newspaper articles that later turned out all to have been written by Engels. The most famous of their explicitly collaborative writings was, of course, the Communist Manifesto. Its genesis typified the pattern of Marxian political intrigue. A radical organization in London, called the League of the Just, was in process of reorganization to become the Communist League, and it involved several...
So this is the organization that had Hegelian and Masonic sort of roots, right? And they were sort of quasi-futurists, right? That, as I said, they wanted to bring about the kingdom of God on earth, right? And a lot of the members of the Young Hegelians were part of the movement, right?
Several people in the drawing up of its credo. One of these submitted his draft to Engels, who confessed to Marx that, just between ourselves, I played a hellish trick on Mosi, substituting the Marxian program for the draft entrusted to him. Engels realized the enormity of his betrayal, for he cautioned Marx to utter secrecy. Otherwise, we shall be deposed, and there will be a murderous scandal. Thus, Marx and Engels made themselves the voices of communism. Engels wrote up a document in question-and-answer format, but then decided that he did not like it. He turned his work over to Marx to redo in some other format, and suggested the title, The Communist Manifesto. Slowly the document evolved, written mostly in the style of Marx, though reproducing some ideas from Engels' earlier draft. It was published in February 1848 as The Manifesto of the Communist Party, with no authors listed, as though it were the work of some major organization rather than of a relative handful of radical refugees. The members of the Communist League were overwhelmingly intellectuals and professionals, with very few skilled craftsmen. Their average age was under 30. It had the same kind of social composition that would in later years characterize the so-called International Working Men's Association, and many other radical groups in which the youthful offspring of privilege called themselves the proletariat. When Engels was elected as delegate to the Communist League in 1847, in order to conceal what was in fact an unopposed election, in Engels' own words, a working man was proposed for appearance's sake, but those who proposed him voted for me. Ironically, the year 1848 was a year of revolutions, but revolutions which differed from that described in the Communist Manifesto. The bourgeoisie and the proletariat were in revolutionary alliance against the autocratic European governments on the continent. During the upheavals that swept across Europe, Marx and Engels returned to Germany, Marx to edit a newspaper, the Neue Rheinische Zeitung, in his familiar dictatorial style. Engels worked at first as his chief assistant, until he had to flee in order for his arrest for inciting to violence. Engels made his way through France to Switzerland, enjoying along the way the sweetest grapes and loveliest of girls. This continued Engels' long-lasting pattern of womanizing, which included the wife of a fellow communist whose seduction he revealed to another communist, when in my cups. He was particularly fond of French women, reporting to Marx in 1846 some delicious encounters with grisettes, and later observing, "If I had an income of 5,000 francs, I would do nothing but work and amuse myself with women until I went to pieces. If there were no French women, life wouldn't be worth living." In 1849,
Wait, what?
Engels returned to Germany, where the revolution was being
That was
suppressed,
Engels?
and took
Yeah.
part in armed fighting against the
Dang,
government
bro.
forces. An expulsion order was issued against Marx, who had to liquidate the newspaper with ruinous financial losses. By the latter half of 1849, Marx and Engels had separately made their ways to England, where they were destined to spend the rest of their lives.
Okay, so there you have a bit of the sort of trajectory, right? Okay, so you got this figure Engels, right? You got them in France, right? And of course they're involved in the radical movements, right? And then you have them in England, right? And of course this is where Marx composes his most voluminous works, right? Like Das Kapital and stuff like that, right? So yeah. So it's an interesting sort of movement. And of course at some point he wanted to get a job in New York, right? There's that famous story. Right? So he he almost moved to New York, started working there.
Exiles. The dream of returning to the continent in triumph after
Also he worked for Lord Palmerston in England. Right? He wrote a work on the life of Lord Palmerston, right? That I guess he didn't pay him that well for, right? So Marx like kind of starved with his family. I mean, right?
revolutions there continued to fascinate Marx and Engels. One scholar has counted more than 40 anticipations of impending revolution in their letters and writings over the next 30 years, none of which materialized. But as early as 1850, Marx and Engels had to begin making some preparations for a livelihood in England. Marx was then 32, Engels 30, and neither of them had ever been self-supporting. They had lived off allowances and gifts from their families, including Marx's wife's family, off small inheritances from relatives, the sale of belongings, borrowings, credit defaults, emergency collections among friends and colleagues, and a few scattered and meager earnings from their writings. Now most of these sources had dried up. Both Marx and Engels were estranged from their families, who were as disappointed at their prolonged dependency as they were repelled by their doctrines. Still, as late as 1849, Marx's much-despised mother advanced him enough money from his future inheritance to enable him to live comfortably for years, though in fact it was all gone within 1 year, much of it spent to buy arms for abortive uprisings and to finance Marx's newspaper. Engels' pious father, described by the younger Engels as bigoted and despotic, nevertheless supported him financially. At age 30, Engels accepted his father's offer to work in the family business in Manchester. This became the source of Engels' livelihood and much of Marx's. The young Engels called it forced labor, a painfully ironic term in view of what that phrase was to come to mean in 20th century communist societies. Engels complained, for example, that "I've now got to be at the office no later than 10."
That's too funny. So pointing out that he used the term forced labor against his own dad.
Sheesh.
Oh my God, that is.
And he's in his 30s at this point. That's pretty pretty bad.
Well, I think that you had a stronger bond with your families back then, where you had to be, working, but according to Sowell, right, this is one of the great achievements of capitalist society, right? That people are, roughly independent when they're 18, so to speak, as Locke basically proposed, right? That's one of Locke's proposals, right? But yeah, fascinating that he He used that term against his own daddy. Right.
Apparently, those family ties not too strong.
Right, but they still funded, right? A lot of Marx's whole ventures was funded by Engels' dad, right? This is the truth, right? So, so this is one of the main ideas. But yeah, so he says private property is thus product, result, and necessary consequence of externalized labor. Externalized labor. Right, of the external relation of the worker to nature and to himself. Okay. So you have the separation of man from nature, and you have the separation of man from man. Right, these two sort of vehicles, okay, that are the source of man's alienation. Right, and of course, the externalization that's caught up in the whole mix of creating the notion of private property is part of that mix, according to Marx. Right. Okay, so he says product. So he says private property, the product of externalized labor. Right. Is the product of externalized labor, and secondly, is the means through which labor externalizes itself, the realization of this externalization. Right. Okay, so let me move to some different passages here. Right. Of course, we're reading from the economic and philosophical manuscripts of Marx in 1844. I said 1888 like 1900 times. So I got that wrong. But it's 1844. Right. But yeah, how is this alienation rooted in the nature of human development, he asks. Right. We have already achieved much in resolving the problem by transforming the question concerning the origin of private property into the question concerning the relationship of externalized labor to the evolution of humanity. Okay, so now here is where his sort of dialectical materialism slips in, right? And it's sort of, drive for the evolution of man. Right. And he says, in talking about private property, one believes he is dealing with something external to man. Talking of labor, one is immediately dealing with man himself. Okay, the new formulation of the problem already contains its solution. Okay. So he's saying that man has to own the products of his labor, right? This is his great, thesis or whatever, right? So he's saying that this entire movement will prevent this alienation from occurring, even though he doesn't see, right, that it's the entire technological scope, right, which is really causing the foggy somatic detachment, right, to occur in terms of the externalization, right? Right. So, nature, of course, being turned into the product of labor, right? It's not by means of private property, right? It's by means of technique, right? That it's actually occurring, right? So this alienation that he's talking about, right? So he wants man to own the products of his labor. He thinks that this will cause man to stop being alienated from nature and himself. I believe this is false because that's not what's causing the alienation. Okay, so he says appropriation appears as alienation, as externalization, externalization as appropriation, and alienation as a true naturalization. Okay, so the more we're alienated from something, right, we externalize it, right? To externalize it is to appropriate it. And this process of appropriation, alienation, externalization is naturalization. And he says, as we have seen in relation to the worker who appropriates nature through his labor, the appropriation appears as alienation. Self-activity is activity for another and of another, living as the sacrifice of life, production of the object as loss of it to an alien power, an alien man. So he explains alienation, right? We now consider the relationship of this alien man to the worker and to labor and its object. Okay. So of course this notion comes from Feuerbach's application of us being alienated by nature, right? So that we invent God, right, to escape from, as a sort of escapism from nature, right? And Hegel's whole notion of the master-slave relationship, right? The master-slave dialectic and how this dialectic proceeds throughout history. Okay, so now he moves to another section called private property and communism. Right, and I'm going to skip some of this, right? But here he quotes Saint Simon, right? He alludes to his ideas, right? So we were talking about how Saint Simon, right, and the Martinists, right, sort of influenced Marx, and here he is quoting Saint Simon, right? He says, Fourier, agreeing with the physiocrats, thus regards agricultural labor as being at least exemplary, while Saint Simon, on the other hand, holds industrial labor as such to be the essence of labor, and thus seeks the exclusive predominance of the industrialists. Right, so here we have the notion of the scientific socialism, right? As we read in the Collins article, right, Philip D. Collins, right, he talked about how the ideas of Saint Simon, right, were basically primary to those of Marx. Right, and here we have Marx himself admitting it in the Economic and Philosophical Manuscripts of 1844. And also this idea that in industrial ideas should predominate, right? Communism is ultimately the positive expression of private property as overcome, aufgehoben, German word, right? Okay, this is the longest paragraph. I'm going to read all of it, right? And then I think I'll move to Marcuse, right? Because we're sort of running out of time here. It says, immediately, it is the universal private property, right? In taking this relation in its universality, communism is, one, in its first form, only a universalization and completion of this relationship. As such, it appears in a double pattern. On the one hand, the domination of material property bulks so large that it wants to destroy everything, which cannot be possessed by everyone as private property. It wants to abstract from talent, etc., by force. Immediate physical possession is for it the sole aim of life and existence. The condition of the laborer is not overcome, but extended to all men. The relationship of private property remains a relationship of the community to the world of things. Okay, so that would be in relationship to nature itself, right? Ultimately, this movement, which contrasts universal private property to private property, is expressed in the animalistic form that marriage, surely a form of exclusive private property. Okay, now we're getting to the meat and bones of the issue. Okay, and we're getting to the weirdness of it as well, right? Okay, an animalistic form that marriage, surely a form of exclusive private property, is counterposed to the community of women, where they become communal and common property. What a weird thought. And why would that only apply to women, right? Well, we might say that this idea of the community of women is an open secret of this stiff, very crude, unthinking communism, as women go from marriage into universal prostitution. So the whole world of wealth that is the object and essence of man passes from the relationship of exclusive marriage with the private owner into a relationship of universal prostitution with the community. This communism, in that it negates man's personality everywhere, is the only logical expression of private property, which is this negation. Okay, so what do we have here? We have the notion of marriage, an animalistic notion. You have this neo-primitivism, in which you have the universality of man, the reduction of man to a species being, right? And in which he's only free to express his primitive urges. You have the universality of property, right? And the notion that nature is reduced to property, right? You have the extrapolation of this notion to marriage itself. And then you have the final universal sort of prostitution of humanity, right? By nature being used and the women being used in common as property among all the people, right? So you have this notion of this alienation represents a sort of deep level, disturbance, right? In man's sort of internal sphere, right? That's represented by the marriage relations, right? The reduction of marriage to private property, right? But also you have a sort of quasi-feminism, right? In which you have this notion of this sort of community of women that sort of comes from the Republic, right? Of Plato. It's all very interesting, isn't it? So yeah, I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on that. Lots of very interesting ideas I just laid out, right? I had to pat myself on the back there. So yeah, so let's move to Marcuse if nobody has anything then.
I'm still distracted by Engels wanting the French women.
He lusted after French babes. And Hegel, he shadoinked the maid. Good Lord.
So
that's never good.
pulled a Schwarzenegger, right?
Yeah, he pulled a Schwarzenegger. He's a German. The German. So yeah, let's move to a Marcuse, and then we'll play some music for you guys and move to some different critiques, right? Okay, now he's going ham, right? Obviously, he wants to push towards this international movement, right? He says technical progress extended to a whole system of domination and coordination creates forms of life and of power, which appear to reconcile the forces opposing the system and to defeat or refute all protest in the name of historical prospects of freedom from toil and domination. Contemporary society seems to be capable of containing, i.e. restricting social change, qualitative change, which would establish essentially different institutions, a new direction of productive process, new modes of human existence. This containment of social change is perhaps the most singular achievement of advanced industrial society. The general acceptance of the national purpose, bipartisan policy, the decline of pluralism, the collusion of business and labor within strong state testify to the integration of opposites, which is the result as well as a prerequisite of this achievement. In the face of apparently contradictory facts, the critical analysis continues to insist that the need for qualitative change is as pressing as ever before. Needed by whom? The answer continues to be the same: by society as a whole. For every one of its members, the union of growing productivity and growing destruction, the brinkmanship of annihilation. Yeah, I haven't heard that word brinkmanship until since Jean-Luc Picard. It's like brazen, like boldness that's destructive. It's like brinkmanship. It's like somebody's constantly trying to scale up the, the conflict, right? To try to call the other guy's bluff, right? Brinkmanship, right? I said the brinkmanship of annihilation, the surrender of thought, hope, and fear to the decisions of powers that be, The preservation of misery in the face of unprecedented wealth constitutes the most impartial indictment, even if they are not the raison d'etre. God, I hate that word.
Yeah, it's not a good one for Americans.
Raison d'etre of the society, but only its byproduct, its sweeping rationality. Sweeping rationality. Okay, now we do talk about the paradox of this, right? Okay, about right, how illogical, right, the push for sort of technical efficiency at any cost really is, right? But how the whole structure is based on rationality. That's perfectly rational, right? So you can't oppose it, right, by rational means, right? So this is a great problem, right? Is that is a sort of pretense to rationality, right, that exists within the system, right? Okay, and of course, if you have a critique of the system, right, it's you that's the problem, right, not the system. Right, you're maladjusted. Right, as I say, right? The fact that the vast majority of population accepts and is made to accept the society does not render it less irrational and less reprehensible. Okay, the distinction between true and false consciousness, real and immediate interest still is meaningful, but this distinction itself, must be validated, right? Men must come to see it to find their way from false to true consciousness. From their immediate to their real interests, they can do so only if they live in need of changing their way of life or denying the positive benefits of society, of refusing. Right? It's precisely this need which the established society manages to repress to the degree which is capable of delivering the goods, quote unquote, on an increasingly large scale using the scientific conquest of nature for the scientific conquest of man. Using the scientific conquest of nature for the scientific conquest of man. Using the scientific conquest of nature for the scientific conquest of man. Right? It's essentially separation of man from man, separation of man from nature, right? Okay, and as I said earlier, right, it's a creation of a religion that is anti-life, right, and a science, right, that is anti-man, right, a science that seeks to transform man into God, right, and a religion that seeks to transform all of nature into the products of man's rationality. Right, and this is the true source of alienation right there, right? I think Marcuse got closer than Marx, but of course he had the benefit of hindsight, right, and philosophy and all that stuff, right? So, so yeah, let's move to Scribina and the MK Ultra stuff, right, as the sort of end of this, right? And we'll get a little break going here, right? We got 4 Hero. You guys like 4 Hero? I know I do.
Oh man, I haven't listened to any of that for a while.
Yeah, I knew Reddington would know. Yeah, Killer Mix, Mix 8, crazy stuff. Ambient mostly. But yeah, wild. Yeah, I was relaxing listening to that with you earlier. But yeah, we got 4 Hero. See what happens. See if the people are awake. Don't sleep.
There's a beautiful sound that I hear.
Yeah, welcome back. And blessings to the people who are watching here. I greatly appreciate your time. Okay, I know there's lots of other, you know, streams that you could be participating in, but yeah, this is one of the most important. You know, I think in terms of the information that is being presented, right? The scale of the information, right? We're talking about the origins, okay, or the link between feminism and communism. Okay, the origins, the ideas of the Frankfurt School, right? Their origins, you know, obviously, you know, Marcuse was a very influential thinker, right? He started one of the chief architects of the alternative right movement of paleoconservatism, right? Paul Gottfried, right? But he taught Paul Gottfried, right? Okay, let me show you guys this. So if you think these ideas are not relevant, then you're just simply mistaken, right? You're a halfwit. I don't know what to tell you, right? You simply just don't understand what's relevant and what's not, right? But yeah, it says Gottfried helped coin the paleoconservative, right? This is what the guy, Andrew, he's got Paleocon Andrew in his Paleo Christ Con. Christ Con is a weird way to say things, right? But yeah, it says Andrew Wilson, Paleo Christ Con, right? So paleo conservative, right? So he's labeling himself under the movement, right? So there's conservative influencers, right, that are following Jewish philosophers from the Mises Institute, right, that started the alternative right movement, and guess who taught them? None other than Herbert Marcuse, German-American philosopher, social critic, associated with the Frankfurt School.
Ruh-roh.
With the Frankfurt School. So if you're wondering where these guys got their ideas from, right? It's pretty interesting, right? And who else did a Marcuse teach? Oh, did he teach Angela Davis? One of the founders of the Black Panther Party? You betcha he did. You betcha that Jew taught both the founder of alt-right and the founder of Black Panthers.
Sheesh.
So put it all together. You think this right, left thing, right? And of course, they're both infiltrating Washington. I remember when they went in on January 6th, what did they show? The Black Panthers going in with guns. Remember walking around in the white, right? Crazy. Right? Maybe it's the same people who caused both of those events. You guys will never know, right? The left and the right working together. You got to follow the philosophy, follow the money and the philosophy, right? As they say, right?
Or if we do find out, it'll be way too late and no longer relevant.
Yeah. People are too slow. They're not hip to the game. Right. But yeah, was it a Jewish philosopher that thought of their ideology? The Christian nationalist? Oh, you bet it was. Strange.
Bad trombone.
Strange. How's exactly that work? So yeah, anyways, we're looking at the problem of technology, right? This is a huge issue. Right? So of course we're laying down the ideas, right? Obviously Marx was a huge influence on the Frankfurt School, right? Okay, we're tracing the influences, right? This second part of our show, we're looking at the problem of technology. Right? And those people that are promoting technological innovation, okay, at real cost to humanity, at real cost to human traditions, they're trying to instill a global movement, like Henry A. Murray, right, who went on to work at the Esalen Institute, right, and was a protege of C.G. Jung, right, and both Jung and Gregory Bateson worked for the OSS. Right? They were basically spies, right? So yeah, Henry A. Murray helped conduct the MK Ultra studies. Right? One of his test subjects was Uncle Teddy. And of course, he went on to go teach at the Esalen Institute, right? So, of course, there's a link from the Frankfurt School, right, to the ideas of Jung, to the ideas of Marx and Freud. And we're going to get into the MK Ultra thing in a minute here, right? I don't know what is going on with the numbers here, right? We just went up to 20 and now back to 10. Something weird. I think it's because I started talking about a certain group of people. That it shot up a little bit, right?
Sheesh.
Pretty weird optics from you guys, right? But yeah, let's take a look at it. Stress, anxiety, depression. Right, you guys are all technological slaves, right? You think you're free, right? So this is what it is. In Los Angeles Times reported on a Korean study that found that the top 1/3 of high school cell phone users, those who make more than 90 calls per day, quote, scored significantly higher on tests measuring depression and anxiety, unquote, compared with less frequent users. In 2012, the same paper reported on UC Irvine experiment that examined stress and heart rates in workers while checking email. A selected group of workers had their heart rates measured during quote-unquote normal frequent emailing at work. And they were found to have high, steady, quote-unquote on alert heart rate, indicative of a mild stress condition. The same group was then banned from email for 5 workdays. Researchers found a more natural variable heart rate comparable to low stress condition. Another link between internet use and depression was examined by Selfhout and colleagues, 2009, who found that among 317s, what a weird number, right? Internet use for non-communication purposes, e.g. gaming, web surfacing, videos, predicted more depression and more social anxiety. Okay, we got somebody in the back here. Do I know who the fuck this is? Who the fuck? Okay, hold on. Okay, I don't know what you're showing me there. Yo, what's going on? Who is this? Who this? Oh, is this Calyx?
Who's this?
Oh yeah, what's going on, Calyx?
Sounds like a Calyx.
Yeah, this is Calyx, yeah.
A wild Calyx has appeared.
We got Denizen. Bless
And a wild denizen has appeared.
A wild denizen.
Indeed.
Hey, greetings.
Yeah, what's going on, man?
Greetings.
Yeah, we're looking at some of the effects of technology. Yeah, blessings.
Yeah, indeed, dude. That was awesome.
Yeah, weird stuff, man. So kids that are texting more, they're on their cell phone more, they're more depressed. You know what I mean? People who are web surfing, people who engage in gaming, web surfing videos, predicted more depression and social anxiety. People are having a mild stress condition when they're sending an email.
Dude, I made a subject of your environment. Like, I'm the perfect test subject.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
We're right. We're all being experimented on. Right? We're all like basically see. That's the thing is that the technological changes happen so rapidly that it's like taking a person who lived like in the woods like for 50 years of their life and then dropping them off in a city and telling them to go get a job.
Instantly.
Yeah, get a job and get adjusted to the city life, right? Whereas if you look at the whole span of humanity, right, they say we live for this many years, right? For
It's
90%,
insane.
for 90% of that time we've been
It's just
low
like
tech.
boop. Just like here you go. It's like here you go. You didn't ask for any of this. Boop. You just drop them
They
off.
just drop them in the modern world.
Yeah, dude. Like what the fuck?
Yeah, so we're not given time to adjust to these circumstances. Like I think cell phones only been here like
Not
20 years.
even our lifetime.
Yeah, I was in high school when I started.
Like, yeah, maybe they had like cell phones back in the day, but like not to the level we have now.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I think for the first time ever, they have kids going to college where they had the tablet, the entire time, when they were growing up, where they never like watched like TV and shit. They never sat down and watched TV like with the whole family, right? They just got the tablet computer and they're just watching.
Oh man, that must be like sad. Okay, yeah,
their whole life, yeah.
Yeah,
It is sad.
Because like I have what is it called? Like I have this.
Yeah, I have that too.
This is not the same though.
Yeah, I have a Game Boy Color and I have a Game Boy Advanced and I have a Nintendo 64.
GBA.
I never play that shit, but
yeah, dude,
one day I'll
and
get,
it's
like, a
crazy
girlfriend.
at the advanced level. Like, you know what I mean? Like everything
you got
just
that too. Nice.
Like it's like I have some desire for it, but I don't have like the desire I had it like yesterday. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
It's crazy, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been like 2 or 3 years. I mean, I got Pokemon Yellow on the Game Boy Color. I might beat that again.
Right.
But it's been 2 or 3 years since I played Super Mario World 2. I got the game 6 gold coins. Right?
Oh
Super
yeah.
Mario World 2. But you know what I really need is Super Mario World 3, Super Wario's World. Because that's the OG fucking video game, is Super Wario's World. Wario's World is 10 times better than Mario.
Yeah.
It's just way better. He's like Turkish or something. I don't know. It's crazy, man.
Dude, Wario, right, dude?
Yeah. Yeah, I think Mario's Italian, but then he's like Turkish or something. It's fucked up. Right?
I know, dude. It's
racist.
crazy how that like an Asian guy like just like he just came up with that shit.
Yeah, he's like a Muslim and he like throws bombs like Wario, right?
Dude, right?
Wavy
Yeah,
mustache.
no messaging there.
It's like WarioWare.
Yeah, and
WarioWare, dude. That's crazy. WarioWare. Like,
yeah, they have like big like dome temples. They have like pirates and shit trying to fuck with them. Wario is like a pirate. Like Mario's like more like in a kingdom.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
He's like a pirate.
He's like an international
but-
pirate. Like he doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah, dude. There's like probably some deep esoteric shit between that.
Yeah, like the M and the W.
Right, the W.
Yeah, that's it's inverted. So
the inverted M.
And you turn them sideways and it becomes 33.
Right.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're not even on the conspiracy part yet, but yeah, let me read a little bit more of this. Facebook depression. Facebook depression. You guys remember this?
Yep.
There was a lady. There was a young lady who posted her death note on Facebook, and I think like nobody read it, nobody commented. It got a few likes. It's like people just like
Jesus.
It's like fuck it. Like, what do they know? You know what I mean? So yeah, crazy, man. They're like, yeah, this is good. This is good. Yeah, this is entertaining. All right. So yeah, wild stuff.
Was it a short? I don't usually watch YouTube shorts, but like, dude,
No, I don't watch that either. Yeah.
someone was all like, dude, you gotta expand. I'm just like, bro, I can't like.
Yeah, I don't do that shit. Yeah, I'm good on that. I'm good on expanding with the shorts. Yeah. I just don't want to make brain rot for people that have low attention span and they're scrolling through the stupid thing.
Yeah, the little short dopamine fixes, like that's just not the way to go.
Yeah, that is destructive. Yeah, that's destructive. I'd rather produce just long form videos.
Right.
You could comb through the video and look at the different, I give like 2 hours at a time, like segments of shit. All right. So yeah, if you don't have attention,
Yeah.
you can't fuck with it. It is what it is.
Exactly, bro.
But yeah, Facebook depression. So he said across the whole data sample, there was a close relationship between internet addiction tendencies and depression. Social media were found to be strongly implicated in excessive use, and thus emerged a new phenomenon: Facebook depression. Chow and Edge 2012 examined this matter, finding that the more frequent users believed that others were happier and that others generally had better lives than they did. Yeah, that seemed like about the size of it, right? The people that are depressed on Facebook, they're seeing the fake ass activities of the other people that are like, oh, I went to this party, or here I am with all these people. And it's totally a fake moment that they're producing for likes, right? So that they try to measure up to these fake events that these people are producing, these real life actors on the Facebook, and then of course they feel depressed, right? Because they're not doing anything fun. So
Why do you think I go like skateboarding? It's like that's the one thing I can do.
Right.
That's fun.
Right, like people don't even do like
It's like you actually have to try, Like sometimes you actually have to try it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it says on the surface, Facebook provides an invaluable resource for fulfilling the basic human need for social connection rather than enhancing well-being. However, these findings suggest that Facebook may undermine it. Quote, specifically, the researchers determined that both affective and cognitive well-being declined with increasing usage. Ooh, cognitive well-being.
I agree. Dude, it's just like the whole copy on the copy thing. You know what I mean? It's like the more you just do it, it just degrades it like at an exponential rate. Like before you could even like it's after the first one, like an addiction.
That's exactly the next thing that he was saying.
Okay.
It says the authors call for further study, noting, however, that Facebook's addictive properties may make it difficult to conduct controlled interventions. So yeah, crazy. Yep.
Right.
So it's the addictive capacity of it. And of course, this applies across the board to lots of social media. I'll wait for him to walk back over.
Dang, bro.
There we go. Yeah, blessings.
Blessings, bro. Dude, it's so nice to finally talk to you again, dude. Every time I hop in your live, I'm like, damn, I should get say what's up to my bro.
Yeah, I appreciate you.
My bro.
Yeah, it's good to talk to you too.
Yeah. For sure.
Same with all of you. I greatly appreciate you guys. Hanko Flamio, Emperor Lorp. We got some of the we got some of the great homies out here. We got Denizen out here.
We got Browns boy. Do we got Browns boy?
Yeah, indeed we do.
We got Denizen.
For Denizen, I did end up playing that that tape last time. So I played my portion of that. So yeah,
it's a mixtape.
So much for that. Yeah, it's kind of like a mixtape. Yeah, the replays are kind of like mixtapes.
It was an Israeli diss track,
bro.
Yeah. TML greatest hits. I mean, Truth or Cop greatest hits.
Let's go. Truth or Comp, greatest hits. Let's go.
Exactly.
Freaking love it, bro.
Calix.
Yeah,
he had
dude,
some
yeah.
funny commentary on that speech.
Yeah. Yeah, we had some funny. Yeah, it was funny. Yeah.
Yeah. Today was a day for me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
It was a day.
I posted a weird a video. Well, it wasn't a video. It was just like more like podcast style. Oh, hey, what's up?
What's up?
Yeah, it was like more podcast style. I don't know. It's not worth checking out.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah. I've been what was it? Yeah. This is I was what, like almost a year, no alcohol. Now we back.
Nope. Yeah, that's a good news, man. Yeah, I quit.
Yeah. I had a whole philosophical thing about it.
Nice.
Yeah. But like yeah. Hold on. I don't know why this shit's all loud.
Yeah, it's all good. It's no worries. Yeah, we'll play a dope outro here. If you want to.
Are you dipping out?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, not like dipping out. I mean, I'm gonna play music.
How many hours have you been streaming for?
Yeah, I'll play music for a while though. I mean, so you know.
It's been about 2 hours.
So don't everybody leave. You know, we will be playing a lot of music. So you know, don't everybody get up.
Yeah.
You guys chill out.
We don't gotta go just yet.
Exactly.
We got some fine tunes. We got some hot plates for hot dates.
Exactly.
There we go, bro. I'm all for this shit, bro. It's always good to catch you on the live, man.
Ooh, baby.
Who is that? What the heck?
Baby.
I'm like such a noob.
No, it's not. It's not really. It's not like a significant person. I mean, it is for me, but not for the general populace. Yeah, we also got this guy right here. Yeah, exactly.
We got Lone Wolf. We got Denizen. We got TML. Wait, what's
quasi internet famous?
Yeah, today is the short show. Exactly.
Is it exactly. Nice, man? Where are you in the? Are you in the Bronx, or where? Where are you in the?
No, I'm in the Detroit.
Wait, oh, you're in the middle. You're in the middle west.
Midwest, exactly.
I thought you were over there, like over there.
Yeah, come and holler.
Did you migrate to Detroit?
Yeah, we had people come and see us from the internet. So if you would like to come and see us in Detroit from the internet,
of course, man.
Feel free to come by. I mean, we are published authors, so our name.
Yeah, dude.
Even our address is available online. So it is what it is. But yeah, so
of course, man.
We are highly sought after, you could say.
Sad Jamon.
Yeah, I tried tuning in the other day, dude. I was watching. I don't know who the other guy was. Who was that one guy? He's just like, he's just like, I don't know. Maybe I just misread him. Who's that one guy? He seems cool, right? He's like a bald white guy.
Oh man, there's so many of them.
There's so many of them.
So many of them.
What, on the stream?
Yeah, he got into it with Rant.
That one bald white guy.
And he thought I was Rant, I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna rip this.
You can't be talking about Cecil, right?
I don't remember his name. He's like, he looks MAGA. I'm not saying he's MAGA. I'm saying, like, if you had like a meme of a MAGA dude, it would be him.
Yeah, fair enough.
That one
And he
bald
was
white
arguing
guy,
with
he
Rand.
looked like he was confrontational. I'm just like, damn, dude.
Well,
like,
yeah, because I think he was pissed off because Rand
yeah, I
kept
was like,
talking
why are you
over him. And,
mad at? Why are you mad?
Oh, I remember who it is. It's
Very
Mike,
aggressive.
Mike Malzahn.
yeah, that was him.
Terribly aggressive drivers. Oof.
Detroit has the most aggressive drivers.
Get into confrontation with these guys. Ooh, my God. Oh my God.
I didn't really say anything. You can't really get a word in edgewise when Rand gets like that.
I don't know. I
But
wanted
I
to
think
hop
he
up
thought
there. What
I
was
was
it? Like
him
there
at
was
the
like
end.
6 people on panel.
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit. I was like, we'll be able to get a word in here.
Exactly. This was my last stream, my exact last stream, right?
Yeah.
I think we're referring to, or is the stream before last stream?
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
Friday.
One of the last two.
Oh, you're talking about
Oh.
the bubbling, you know,
mistake.
The mistake, exactly. Yeah, which, yeah. Let me show you guys this. Oh, actually, that's available at the Cyber Caliphate channel. So yeah, it's Space LARP. So yeah, let me drop that link in the chat. You guys could go watch a disaster of a panel. I mean, occur.
Something about like Islamic or something. I'm just like, damn, bro. And so, like, why does he have like a target? Like, you know, like some people go up on panel and just like, you can just like
He
see
has
they have like a target, just like they're just like beep 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 beep. And I'm just like, holy shit. I'm just like, come on.
He seems to have a proclivity for Islam.
Yeah.
Proclivity of hate, that is.
Whose lawn is it? All right. I'm about to take this dab. Even though there was some like reclaim burning off. We're going for it. Oh shit.
So here's the Space LARP Forbidden panel. So yeah, so that is available, brothers and sisters, and that is our entire show here. So I greatly appreciate you guys' time. Now I see a lot of people have poured in. So I appreciate you guys pouring in, but the show's over. So where were you guys the last 2 hours? I don't know.
Everyone decided to come kick it.
Yeah, finders, keepers, losers, weepers.
I mean, it is on the earlier schedule now, so
yeah.
Yeah, so the what is it called? Is it the what is it called? The when the sun sets, it's like the sunset early. It's called
like daylight savings. I think is that what you're trying to get to?
Yeah, daylight savings, or it's called what is it called? The thing when it
Dang.
Dude, Lone Wolf knows what it is. It's called like when the sun goes down earlier. You know what I mean? What's it called again?
I don't know. Winter? I don't know. Who knows?
Okay, so this gives me an alarm.
Oh, are you talking about like the solstice type of winter solstice?
Yeah, the solstice.
Oh, see, okay, I
the
get
solstice. It's like, okay, like we actually have 4 quarters. Okay, TML, do you want to know something crazy? My dumbass like didn't realize it, but like until like recently, or I'll say even I'll go as far as saying this year, is that like I'm 35 years old and I wasn't aware of like a solstice. Like, you know how many people aren't aware of like quarters are in a year? Like, you know how many people aren't aware of the shit? Like, I wasn't aware of it for like a year, like for long, not a year, but like for my whole life, dude. Like, it's like, what the fuck that makes life make more sense? It's like, what the fuck? Like, why aren't they teaching this in schools, like about solstices and shit? They just teach you about capitalism and shit, you know? Like they don't teach you about the like what is it called? Like now it's just going to get darker and then it's going to get brighter. Like it's just some crazy cycle, bro.
Yeah, what the fuck is that? How come they didn't teach us that?
It's like double rainbow.
Yeah, please add on to that.
Well, it just goes with like, you know, like all that shit's like in Plato's Timaeus. You know, like the spheres and all that stuff. Right? It's like
yeah, dude. Like everything is cyclical, and like here, like at least like until like I had to like somehow like it came across my path that like we have solstices and shit. Or it's not solstices. What is it called? Like I'm like tripping out hard. What is it called? The
equinox. Or what?
Looks like he froze.
Oh man. I'm not even looking at the screen. Here, hold on, let me see this. They zapped him. Yeah.
They got him.
They got him. He got zapped. So yeah, I appreciate him. Yeah, I appreciate the homie. Yeah, come back and smoke with us. The green flash. Yeah, exactly. Blessings to the homie.
Green flash. You don't want no blue flash. Blue flash can make you deaded.
Darn, missed it? Yeah, putting the kids to bed. Yeah, it's no worries, Mimsy Limbs. Yeah, check it out later. Interesting stuff from Marx. I was getting to like the cream of the crop of what I wanted to discuss with him, which is this like sort of idea that our oppression of nature is the oppression of women and the privatization of women and this community of women and this notion that he brings up, universal prostitution. What a term. Right?
Oof.
A lot of crazy stuff there. But I greatly appreciate Calyx. And right, we'll play some music now and yeah, we'll be back tomorrow. Much longer show tomorrow. Right. Yeah, so yeah, we'll I procured some videos and some themes and some things. So I think you guys will like the discussions tomorrow. So we'll continue this discussion, right? It'll be a lot of material. I'll present what I did here, right? Sort of summarize my findings, right? And we'll look at thinkers from Skolimowski to Gerrymander, right? To Mumford, right? To lots of different thinkers, right? Including the main focus, right? Which is Ellul and Uncle Teddy, right? So we're going to be focusing on those guys, right? So yeah, we'll continue on all this, guys. Yeah, thank you so much, Calyx. Blessings. Yeah, I greatly appreciate you. So yeah, that's all we have today. Do you guys have any words of wisdom or, no pressure?
Oh,
Blessings.
man. I was going to say something, but I forgot what it was from earlier.
Oh, man. Oh, maybe if you remember later, write it down. You could say it tomorrow. It's no worries.
Something to do with Hegel, maybe.
Yeah. Why you say that? Fucking bored. Okay, yeah. Just rewind the tape. There's a lot there. Rewind the tape for all you people that were here. Just rewind the tape, man.
Play the tape.
Yeah, don't be gay. Rewind the fucking tape. Show a brother some love. Man. Yeah, what you got, Denizen?
Nothing. I missed the stream again.
Yeah, it's okay. I think people are adjusting to the new time. So I think that's why everybody's here now, because it's past 9:15, right? So now all of a sudden I have 20 people watching because they think the stream was starting at 9:15. The streams are starting at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. For all the great people out there, I greatly appreciate your time. And please go back and rewind the tape if you missed it. Very important reflections. We're gonna and if you didn't see the build up to it, last Tuesday was sort of very slow build up, right? But the previous Tuesdays before that, right? The Tuesday before that and the Tuesday before that, right? Insane presentations on Marx, right? And Marcuse and stuff. So, very important reflections there. You guys are going to not want to miss obviously you could read it on your own. Economic and Philosophical Manuscripts, 1844. Go read it on your own. Because it's important stuff. Try to figure out arguments against it, right? Using Locke and Rousseau. Obviously, you could try to do that on your own, or you could look at what I put down and use that as a roadmap, right? So there's all this time.
I mean, it's almost like Marx tried to create a philosophy just to excuse his laziness.
That was crazy that he called
laziness or lack of motivation.
Yeah,
both. I mean, always borrowing from other people and whatnot, throwing away money pretty much at things that didn't really pan out.
Yeah. Influential modern thinker. Of course, a lot of the philosophers in their own lifetime, they did not achieve the accolades that they achieved in their, demise. And yeah, so yeah, I think that could be said for Hegel and Marx, right? That they're giants now, but during their lifetime, they were all too human. And it says something about its sort of revolutionary fervor, right?
JFK tells a joke about Marx in an address to the press in which he's asking them for more secrecy during times of war. And he talks about how, of course, this is during the Cold War with Russia. And he's talking about how when Marx was younger and worked for the New York Times, he wrote to the editor asking, or his boss asking for a raise, and was refused. And JFK made the joke, maybe we wouldn't have to be dealing with the Cold War right now if they'd only given him a raise at the New York Times.
Right.
Sad trombone.
Right. I mean, there's a quote by Marx where somebody asked him, "Who will clean the floors after the revolution?" And he pointed at the guy and said, "You will."
Sheesh.
Pretty crazy, huh? So yeah, good old Marxy Marx. You love him and you love to hate him, and yeah, it's a mixed bag there.
He's right. It's like, since you're so concerned about cleaning the floors, it probably should be you.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Calix. Yeah, I hope I make it there with you. Yeah, so that's all we have here. Do you guys have anything else?
Do not seek the treasure.
Yeah, blessings. Yeah, so we'll be back tomorrow, my friends. And yeah, thank you for joining us here on The Machine Lies, where we talk about the lies of the machine on the machine that lies. And, the first step to blinding somebody is getting them to open their eyes. And the first step to seeing beyond the programming is to realize how you've been programmed, right? So, yeah, so here is some music, right, for you guys. So, and I hope you guys appreciate it. And I appreciate the company, my friends. Truly, a blessed time, and yeah, see you guys tomorrow. Some significant expansions in terms of tomorrow's material now. I'm really more excited about the Saturday, just because of the Pannenberg stuff. We also may have that guest, I asked Buddha about that, right? So yeah, we may have some extra people on deck tomorrow, or even on Saturday. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, blessings.
to uncertainty. The unknown has shown grace, but yet the third degree. Lessons from the truth moves closer, so can you pay the fee? From A to B, cascade brain, I hate to be voice of the last starfighter. I am Esquire, shape of my skull beholds. I am the star child, sightless, born beyond the song, timeless. Right, righteous, but what's left is really priceless. Treat me how you wanna be, but suddenly you're hunting me. Yes, the sky is falling, Chicken Little. Don't you love to be screaming out the obvious, but never saying help me? Just too much to handle in the world, now we melting. Save it to the heart to drive and count the stars until I cry. Flowers in the final view, the world is ending, come inside graceful. When we gone, the earth will write a fable. Seas will rejoice and the skies will rise faithful. Sun still sets and the buildings will still crumble. Meek inherit the earth, the comfort of the humble. Just setting the moon, come closer, I hug you. Say I love you right before the sky tumbles. Put it in the atmosphere, raise it up until we're near. Touching on the face of God, maybe now he's gonna hear. Joy coming in the morning, most of us will shed a tear. Looking at the final act, hoping that we hold it dear. Put it in the atmosphere, raise it up until we're near. Touching on the face of God, maybe now he's gonna hear. Joy coming in the morning, most of us will shed a tear. Looking at the final act, hoping that we hold it dear. Mission of the schism, a mighty key in the wisdom. Put it to the chamber and let it go to the rhythm. I'm moving to the ocean and break it out of the prison. World full of wonder, I wonder if I will live it. Full to my abilities with super high fidelity. Put it to the tide of life, but still it's just an elegy. Screaming to the closest cloud and watch it as it's coming down. Sun setting in the morning while the moon is touch the ground crazy. Like learning that you're about to have a baby. Two coming together, forming a better maybe. Raising the glass ceiling, the feeling so amazing. Like music playing while the sky's fading, praying for safety. Quiet in a deeper soul, speaking through the notes and told deeper meanings of being dedication on one accord. Let's begin, measure of the moment till the world ends. Space between the breaths is eternity as the earth spins. Smile as a child do, listening to mother's tunes. Weight is on my shoulders, but its color is a shade of blue. Put it in the atmosphere, raise it up until we near. Touching on the face of God, maybe now he's gonna hear. Joy coming in the morning, most of us will shed a tear. Looking at the final act, hoping that we hold it dear. Put it in the atmosphere, raise it up until we near. Touching on the face of God, maybe now he's gonna hear. Joy coming in the morning, most of us will shed a tear. Looking at the final act, hoping that we hold it dear.